Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd do a little bit more of a pet reality check type scenario. You guys know that I love reptiles. If it wasn't for the fact that I currently live with my parents, that won't be like this forever. I would probably have a few more pets than I already have. Unfortunately our cat died, Owen. Bless his soul, rest in peace. Was it a couple of years ago now? And that was kind of the last. Me and my brother got kittens. Mine died quite early on. He was actually hit by a car like years and years ago. And then Owen kind of grew up by himself. And so that was the last kind of cat. We got them as children, I think, when I was about 10. And then Owen died a couple of years ago. So he was a good like 13, 14 years old. And just got really poorly basically. So since then we haven't ever had fluffy pets. We don't own the house, we rent our house, and there's not a cat flap in here. So Owen was older and he was quite happy to kind of let you know when he wanted out and come back at night before we sort of went to bed, like, you know, like 11 o'clock or whatever, to be let back in. So he was always quite good like that, and we just decided that, you know, having a cat flap put in a rented house is a bit of a nightmare, and would, you know, there'd be a cost and all that kind of stuff. So we never sort of replaced him. We never got another fairy friend, and I've always loved weird things. So in summer 2015 I bought a Crested Gecko. For my 25th birthday this year I got Gary. So Gary is a bearded dragon, for those of you who have not seen my Meet Gary video. I will pop it in the little iCard thing up here for you to go check out. Please do go watch that video if you would like to learn a little bit more about Gary. He's much bigger now, but that will sort of give you a little introduction. I have on my lap a Crested Gecko, and I know that a lot of you are quite interested in my love of reptiles because I like weird things. I feel like it's kind of a little bit of one of those things where like not many people kind of think that I would be the kind of person to like reptiles or something. I know they're not for everyone. I feel they're hideously misunderstood. They're beautiful creatures. They're wonderful. They make great pets. And I think it's really good, especially if you have children, to let them experience all sorts of different kinds of animals so that they don't get fear and they have a better understanding of, like, you know, the world we live in and what we share it with. I love animals. I love a bit of David Attenborough. I've always been a fan. The only thing, and I hope to one day tackle this fear, that I absolutely cannot stand: spiders. I can kind of take them out with a glass and things like that, but I really struggle with anything else. I couldn't touch them. I don't like to be around them. Ooh, I just can't deal. I thought today I would give you a little bit more information on the downside to owning a Crested Gecko. I actually think that these are great pets and they make wonderful pets for slightly older children. They're really easy to look after. I would think they're easier to look after than like a cat or a dog. They certainly cost less to look after. They don't require live food, so if that's kind of a fear that you have as a parent, or that you know as a young person looking to own one of these animals that your parents wouldn't like. My mum in particular is not a fan of bugs whatsoever, so you know, Gary, who does require live food, is, you know, that was kind of a little bit of a hard point for her, just even being in a house where she's aware that there are kind of live creatures in my room. However, that, you know, that's a real kind of non-issue now. However, Crested Geckos don't require that. I do think there are lots of positives to owning these guys, but I thought that I would give you guys a bit of a reality check on some of the things you really need to consider before getting one of these pets. The first thing that I want to mention is that these guys are small. So although they are easily handled, I think I've been bitten by Fred once, and it's because I scared him. That was my fault. I approached him from above, which you shouldn't really do, because a lot of these kind of smaller lizards and, you know, things like chameleons, small lizards, geckos, things like that will get predated on predominantly in the wild by bigger lizards and snakes and things, but also by birds. So coming from above, not ideal. That's why a lot of these kind of tanks and things that you will notice have a kind of a covering all the way around, and they open with sliding doors, or you know, the clippy ones at the front, so you will always be approaching your animal from the side. I personally do not recommend any tank where the lid comes off the top and that's the only way you get in. I don't feel like that is particularly pleasant for your animal, and I don't think that it's particularly fair and may well kind of freak them out. And when you're looking to tame and have something handleable, the last thing you want to be doing is scaring it and stressing it out. And also with the smaller kind of animals, stress can really affect their health as well, much more so than if you had a bigger animal. So that's the first thing to consider. I would say if you have sensible children and you are going to be, you know, keeping an eye on kids handling, and they're very aware, they know how to be gentle and things, then these guys make great pets for children as well. But I would say sort of you need to be 13, 14, 15, depending on your, you know, your child's maturity level. These guys can drop their tails as well, and that is something that will require you to make sure that the wound is clean and stuff until it's healed, and can also be a little bit of a shock for you to see. I've never had that problem with Fred. It's not something that I hope will ever happen, but sometimes these guys just drop their tails for no reasons. Normally it is a stress reaction. In the wild they would drop it, the tail continues to move, a little bit creepy, a little bit weird, and so the predator would go after the moving tail, and the gecko can escape. A lot of smaller lizards and many other animals are able to do this also. I think it's something that's quite funky. The ones that are left with no tails are known as frog butts, so that's something to consider. So their size, very small, fairly delicate animals. They can lose their tails. Another thing that I would say is that they do jump, so carrying them around on shoulders, sitting with them can be quite tricky. You really need to be holding them in your hands, not necessarily letting them climb everywhere unless you are seated, because a drop from a height can really injure your animal. And these guys are natural jumpers. This is not something that you need to be worried about. It doesn't mean that they really hate you or anything, it's just that they jump. It is part of what they do. Crested geckos are known for jumping. That's just part of how they move. Can catch you a little bit off guard. These guys can be quite fast as well, so do bear that in mind. A couple of other bits. You will need to, if you live in a country where there is a particularly cold climate, you will need to provide these guys with heating. I feel like a heat mat is fine. I would never use something like a heat rock. The temperature control on those is really awful. You know, lots of reptiles are able to kind of like burn their underbellies and stuff because they're just, I just don't recommend them at all. A heat mat placed on the outside of the glass that you can control with a temperature gauge. Lots of brands do them. You can buy them from Amazon. They're super inexpensive. You know, one that's a decent size that you can put on one side of the tank so they can regulate their temperature. I have one stuck on mine. I live in the UK. We live in a house where central heating is on most of the time, and in the summer it doesn't get cold enough. So the next thing to consider is when you are getting something that is small and more of a specialist animal, even though these guys are very easy to look after, definitely consider how you're going to deal with vets. It's really important to find a vet that is capable of dealing with and really knows what they're doing with your smaller animals and your exotic animals, such as these crested geckos, bearded dragons, things like that. There are some really good ones out there. Obviously always check reviews and things. Cats, dogs, rabbits, hamsters, guinea pigs, more generally had as pets, are much easier to care for. You really need to be taking your animals, if there are any problems, to someone who is a specialist in exotics. So do bear that in mind before you're going to purchase any of these guys. The final point that I would like to make, I feel like I've been bashing the crested gecko. I really haven't. Not only do these guys live for 15 to 20 years. I've had him 3 years. I'm 25. He's got about 17 years. I'm going to be in my early 40s. If he lives to nearly 20 years, I'm going to be in my early 40s. And he's, like, by the time he pops his clogs, I'll be in my early 40s. That is a very big commitment. And I really don't want to be someone who, you know, sometimes it happens, circumstances changes, you just know that it is more fair to pass an animal on to someone else that can give it the time and attention. But I would never go into buying an animal when I thought that at some stage I would not be able to care for it for the entirety of its life. So do bear that in mind when you are looking to purchase. Reptiles in particular tend to live for longer. Even, you know, even Gary's going to live for a very long time. Bearded dragons don't live for 15 to 20 years like these guys, but they do live a substantial amount of time. Reptiles in particular are known to have very long lifespans, so do bear that in mind. And I would also like to say that these guys are very secretive. I've woken him up to pop him in this video. He has thanked me for that by shitting on my lap. Which they also do, by the way. They are very... Gary has never pooed on me. Fred has consistently, since I got him, pooed on me. That's also something to be aware of. They're known for doing that, just like they're known for jumping. It's just something they do, something to be prepared for. It stinks. They're so small, I don't know how, but it does. But definitely... Yes, but definitely be aware that these guys are very secretive. They like to hide, they like to be in the bushes, providing that your vivarium setup is appropriate for them. There are lots of things to climb, lots of things to hide in, lots of height. Oh, he's chirping, which is well cute. Really do be aware that you probably won't see them very much unless you are handling them regularly, which of course is absolutely fine. I would suggest when it's starting to get dark, preferably don't wake them up like I've done with him. It's not really fair to be doing that all the time. These guys are nocturnal, they're very secretive creatures, they're very gentle creatures. You probably won't see him a lot. I kind of leave him alone most of the time. I get him out a couple of times in the week. I try not to do it in the day, normally when it's dark and I've come home from work, to check he's okay, make sure he's eating. You will probably panic because you won't see them eating, you probably won't see them shedding their skin, all of that kind of stuff. So it's not an awful lot of payout for what you're putting in. Having said that, once you've got the initial cage set up and stuff, these guys, I don't feel that, there's arguments for and against, but I don't feel they require lighting. I feel like that's more of a risk putting lights anywhere near them because they're so delicate they could sort of burn themselves on it and stuff. I think a heat mat is fine. However, even though they are really easy to look after, you're not going to see them very much unless you are looking for them and getting them out on a regular basis. You know, Gary glass surfs. Gary wants to come out, he wants to spend time with me. I can see when he's, you know, bored of being in his tank. I can come to the, you know, I can come and stand in front of his enclosure and he will come up to the glass like, let me out, mum, you know. These guys aren't going to do that, so do bear that in mind. I just feel like, even though these are really, really, really great pets, I do feel like there needs to be some conversation, especially when it's quite a trend now for pet tubers. You know, they're all quite successful. There are some amazing, brilliant ones out there. I really love Exotic. You should definitely go check out her channel if you haven't already. She's quite a big pet YouTuber right now, who provide real kind of animal education. And I feel like when we're talking about living creatures, you know, you can come on here and go, I love this pet, it's so cool, look how cute he is, he's got sticky little feet, he can stick to the grass, he's going to live for this long, look at his pattern, blah, blah, blah. You still need to definitely make people aware that there is a responsibility for another life in your hands, and reptiles are not necessarily really difficult to look after, but if anything goes wrong, they require specialist care, and so these things are really important to consider. And the length of their life is considerably longer than the majority of pets, and so this is something that definitely needs to be considered before purchasing them. Now, they are wonderful pets. I love Fred to bits. I would absolutely get another Crested Gecko. If you want something that you're going to see more, then I suggest you do your research and maybe go for something more like a leopard gecko. but I just feel like it's very important for me to try and educate you on the reality of having something that's small, delicate, nocturnal, and will require specialist care if something were to go wrong. Fred is happy and healthy. I hope you've enjoyed this video. They do make excellent pets. If you would like kind of a full care routine or anything like that, or you enjoy my pet videos in general, then please do leave me a comment down below and let me know. Give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram. It's Hannah Jo Janes, all lowercase, all one word. There are loads and loads and loads of pictures and you know, what I'm feeding them and all that kind of stuff on my Instagram. I always take pictures and stories with Gaz and Fred. There are also kind of recipes and just more kind of vlog style things on my Insta stories, really. So if you want to see more of me, a little bit more of my personality, I guess, rather than this, oh look, pretty lashes style stuff, then please do go follow me on Instagram as well. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. Again, please do give this video a like if you've enjoyed it. Leave me a comment down below telling me what you have as a pet, because I'd like to know. And their name, obviously, because that's very important. You can see I have a theme with mine. We have Fred and we have Gary. Both are very blokey, quite English, bog standard names. I think that's cool because they're exotic and it's a little bit ironic. So yeah, have a wonderful day wherever you are. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye from me and baby Fred. Say bye. Say bye.